Hello, refiners. This is Mark Geller, Keir Egan on Severance. And you're listening to Severance with the Boys. Their work is mysterious and important.
Let's get this party started.
Handshake is available upon request.
Thank you. May I have a handshake? Every time you find yourself here, it's because you chose to come back.
Innies, outies, shake it all abouties, welcome back to Severance with the Boys, recorded live at the auditory department deep down on the 7th floor of Lumen. I'm Luke F, and as usual I'm joined by my co-host, John D. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
How are you, John? Have you been sharing any vessels this week?
I don't think you can ask me that. Yeah, I am good. Just fed up with the snow, but otherwise good. How are you doing, Luke? How's your week been?
It's been really good. I usually say something funny in this part. I'll come up with something fun, but I need to kind of break character for a second. I want to give an enormous shout out to Mark Geller, who's best known for the voice and likeness of Keir Egan in the series Severance. So I followed him on Instagram and he reached out and in his Keir character praised how much Severance content we had in our feed. And I was like, no way this is the right guy. There's no way this is the real guy. So I messaged him and I took a shot and I was like, hey, would you consider recording an intro for our podcast? This is what we do. Would you consider it? Within 2 minutes, he responds, definitely give me your number. I'll send it to you when I get home. And then on my drive home from work, I get this audio clip, which you heard at the start. And it was incredible. So huge shout out to Mark Geller. So he is on Instagram as well. His handle is Geller, GELLER_Mark MARC. So give him a follow. He needs to boost his follow base a little, and I feel like he's going to be coming into the series a lot more. So we'll see. Watch his space. We do have a guest today from Narratives Composable. He is on his way, I think. Actually, John, do you hear the elevator?
Yep, there it is.
Wow, this floor is different than mine. Hey!
So welcome Matt L from Narratives Composable. Matt, what did you think of this week's episode, real briefly?
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought that it did a whole lot with a lot of subtlety, and I can't wait to get into it. I just thought it was a knockout.
Sick. And John, what do you think?
Another great episode. It was very dense. A lot was happening again. A lot was going on. The cinematography was beautiful again, Luke. I'm sure you missed it. But yeah, good episode again. What about yourself?
So I finished it and I was like, oh, it was fine. Like, it was probably the weakest episode of the season. But then the more I thought about it during the week, I was like, that was actually great. I loved it. So. Okay, so before we get started, I did get to interview Mark Scout this week, so I just want to play that little sound clip for you guys. Hi, Mark. My name's Luke from Severance with the Boys podcast.
Yeah, no, I know who you are.
Oh, great. Glad you've heard of us. Would you consider yourself a fan?
Quite possibly.
Well, we're big fans of you too.
That's nice to hear. Thanks.
This is a little out of the blue, but my dad's pretty cool. Would you like to meet him, maybe?
You want to take me home to Dad already? Sure, let's do it.
Awesome.
What is that smell?
Oh, God, that's really embarrassing. I'm quite ashamed. Thanks for your time.
So this is why you woke up early to do this morning.
That's fucking incredible, Luke. Never change.
Thanks, man. So that was my interview with Mark Scout. Thanks, Mark, for popping on the podcast. Okay, so here's our quick recap of the episode. After being left on a knife edge last week with an Emmy-worthy performance from Adam Scott, this week's episode picks right up where it left off. A tearful Mark explains his trippy experience to Ragabi, who says all she knows is that Gemma is essential to Lumen. Cryptic, indeed. Why do we know so little about Ragabi other than the fact she's a questionable house guest and a less than perfect brain surgeon? Next we see the Innies huddled around the MDR kitchenette as Dylan shares what he found in the break room last week. He knows it's important, but he doesn't want to blow his cover as a model employee who gets to visit his outie's wife. It's milkshake time and he wants the increasingly annoying Miss Huang to know that he knows it was her who snitched on him. The young intern plays it off cool and Milkshake informs her he'll be away for the day. He doesn't say why, but we're pretty sure it's because he has mysterious and important work to attend to. Mark divulges to Helly that he and her shared vessels, which is a hilarious way to explain he and her had greasy tent sex at the Ortbo. Helly's gonna need a minute here. She takes time to wander the surgically sterile hallways of the 7th floor. Turns out Milchek's day will be spent correctly paperclipping his documents and doing weirdly aggressive affirmations into the mirror. You okay there, bud? My guy Seth needs a hot meal and a hug. Meanwhile, Dylan and Gretchen meet at the family visitation center. Outie Dylan must really be a waste of space for his wife to want to cheat on him with Innie Dylan. He a dick? You have to really feel for Helly at this point, right? She heads back to Mark and in an emotional speech suggests, hey, I want some vessel sharing too. Her and Mark find an empty boardroom, pitch a tent, no pun intended, and get down to business. Am I the only one who thought the floor looked incredibly cold and uncomfortable? No? Just me? As Mark and Helly walk the hallways with their post-sex smug faces, Mark's nose begins to bleed, and they have to pay a visit to Miss Huang, who wants to run all kinds of tests on Mark. Mid-scene, Mark trips out and we flip back to Mark's basement with Ragabi, who is performing some reintegration magic. Mark becomes overwhelmed when Ragabi suggests they flood the chip through the hole in his head, and storms out to grab himself some fresh air and some fine eats. It's Irv again, and he's arrived at Bert's house for what might be the most awkward dinner party ever. Irving finally meets Fields, who turns out to be a pretty stand-up dude. This is until he has a few too many vinos and asks Bert and Irving what the chances of them having unprotected sex on the 7th floor were. That's a hell of a way to end the night. Meanwhile, Lumens send their largest and most imposing employee to go undercover and break into Irv's house while he's at dinner, to look through all his secret Lumen documents. How convenient, Bert. How convenient. Our suspicions of Bad News Bert are all but confirmed when Irving leaves and Bert shoots him a menacing look from behind. Mark, meanwhile, has found his way to a nearby Chinese restaurant and runs into none other than Helena Egan. In a strange back and forth, she introduces herself and checks in with him. Just what is happening here? Why does Mark look like hot garbage? Why does Helly want Mark to meet her awful dad? It's back to the Butcher's basement, and with a swift and hilarious apology, Mark is ready to jump back in and flood that chip. Well, this couldn't have been more disgusting, really, could it? Ragabi completes the procedure and Mark heads upstairs to answer the door to Devon, who has chosen the most awkward time to pop around for a chat. While yelling at Devon for interfering, Mark notices he's losing his motor functions and is smelling weird smells. Oh no, we know what's coming. As Devon has the displeasure of meeting Ragabi in such awkward circumstances, it's lights out for young Mark Scout as he seizes on the floor. Okay, so we start the episode in Mark's house with Mark being very tearful and kind of recounting to Ragabi what he saw during his integration trip fest, I guess you call it. Matt, what were your thoughts on that initial scene there?
I thought it was fantastic. I think Mark and grief is like a whole ass thing with this show, but they never say the word, at least not in this episode. I kind of want to go back and see if they actually use the word grief at all through the preceding episodes, but it's one of the stages, like, so good. But then, like, there was something that Adam Scott did with his performance as Mark was having sort of these merging moments. He did similar shit to what Yul Vazquez did in the first season as Petey. The facial expressions and sort of the abrupt body language is like patterned. I felt like I was watching Petey go through the same shit in season 1. It was awesome.
John, what do you think?
Matt pretty much nailed it then. Just that whole, you could see that Mark is fucked up at this stage because he's getting memories of Gemma that he's never had before, and it's just kind of ruining him. He needs to know what the fuck's going on, and it's just, especially, it's like, why is she listing things about me? What the fuck's going on?
Why did the fish stay the same, though? Like, do you guys have theories on this? Because everything else, when he was, like, blinking between realities, was different but similar, except for the fish, which was identical. It was, like, the anchor point.
I'm wondering if it's a hint that it's starting to work, so the memories are kind of merging into one thing.
Shit. Yeah, okay.
I liked it, the intro. I thought it was good that it followed on directly from last week. I didn't expect it to. So to still see Mark with those facial expressions was, like, pretty hard-hitting right off the bat. Too short, maybe, the episode as a whole, especially this scene. I think they could have dragged it out a little more. Let's move on to the Milchek confronting Miss Huang in the office.
Miss Huang in that scene, geez, when she sits down, he's like, I had my performance review, and she's like, how did it go? the actress that she plays, she's super good at what she does. She just plays that subtle of like, fuck you kind of face, and it just works so well. How they shot it as well was perfectly as well, because you had Milchek just sat sideways while she was faced onto the camera as well, and it was just horrible because like you could see her expressions going from like fuck you to I can take over for you, and he's like, no, from your own, you little child. And just Milchek kind of putting her down because of his performance review was a good little bit of comeback. But obviously Milchek being Milchek couldn't stop using his certain lexicon of speaking down to her in his way, which is still fantastic, which I'm sure we'll touch on more later.
Matt, what did you think of that one?
I thought it was really interesting. The Wintertide reference was what kind of took me because like, and this is just, I think, about Severance in general. So much of the fun of this show is trying to figure out what's plot salient information and what's just curtains. And it's so dense, and in the way that it just, like, it could all mean something, but it could all mean nothing. Mammalians nurturable might just be curtains. It might just be a cool thing that we got to have in episode 2, right? It would be weird to use Gwendolyn Christie for a cameo, but like, yeah, so Wintertide was the thing where it's like, is this like a fast track like management program for like intern sociopaths? Because man, Miss Wong scares the shit out of me.
I think it's important to note that this is the first time it's been confirmed where she comes from, who she is. There was a lot of theories around that she was AI, she was a robot, she was dead, she was brought back to life. But she's just an intern, presumably from Egan's School for Girls.
Yeah. That's what I presumed as well, yeah.
We can kind of roll it into one where Mark tells Helly what they've been up to, and they end up having sex in the boardroom. Matt, I'm coming to you first with that. What were your thoughts on that entire sequence?
I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was so like the way that they played like the intimacy of it, like it could have gone in a lesser show so much worse and so much more predictable about like, well, it's a love triangle now. And she's like, Helly just sort of, as always, just kind of cuts the knot and just says, you know what? No, fuck this. It was a violation for everybody. And I love that that's like kind of been the conversation about like last week's episode was like, this was for 2 out of these 3 individual people rape. Like it was a violation. But I think Helly kind of refusing to exclusively frame it that way and be like, no, she got hers, I want mine, fuck this. And just the vulnerability of them being like, it means you thought it was me. You wanted to with me. And just the tenderness in Adam Scott's face when he's like, well, yeah. Like, I love that scene. I thought it was so great. Boardroom floor, interesting choice, but hey, a tent's a tent, I suppose.
John, your thoughts?
Yeah, very similar to Matt on that. It was the initial scene of Mark explaining to Helly that they quote unquote shared vessels was quite horrible to see, because you see Helly go through like all of the emotions of like, I've been used, I've had sex with this person in front of me that I have no memory of. That is a horrible thing to go through at any stage for anyone. And then obviously she goes off and deals with it in her own way of actually saying, you know, this is the guy that I want, and you've dicked me over here. I want some too. I'm not letting you kind of rule me. I'm not letting you dress me like a baby anymore. I'm not letting you rule my life.
I loved that line.
Yeah, same. It really stood out for some reason.
Such like, it just highlights that power dynamic, like the power imbalance. That's extant there.
I felt really bad for Helly in this scene. Britt Lauer is just killing it with her multiple roles this season, like playing both Helena and Helly.
She's literally playing like 3 or 4 roles together.
Yeah,
she's wild.
She's playing Helena is Helly. Helly is Helena. Just fucking Jesus. It's crazy. It's wild. She's great.
That part where she sits down in the corner of the hallway and she's just kind of she's crying and has her shoes off, and it's like shit. This is kind of like, it's like how someone would react after being assaulted, basically. Okay, Dylan in the family meeting room with Gretchen. Let's go to you first, Matt.
There's so much stuff happening with like fidelity and faith in this episode that like to get into it using this as like, I won't subject you guys to that TED talk, but like this perfect mechanism of hiding is being used in really interesting and unsettling ways. And I love Merritt Weaver, who plays Gretchen. She's just she's good at fucking everything. But like, she's doing some really subtle stuff here. It goes back to sort of the beginning of the season where like Dylan straight up asks, like any Dylan asks, like, is he a fuck up? And then you kind of get to see like, yep, there's a reason that this is the one job that has been able to stick for Dylan. And it sucks that she's cheating on him with him. But there is like that question, right? Like, if you could meet the person that you love all over again and have them not know anything other than like, you're going to end up with me, would you do it different? How would you do it different? I don't know. Gretchen's such a fascinating character because she doesn't seem to have a dog in any race other than her marriage, and she's not doing okay.
It's a real nice scene to see Gretchen happy, because she's clearly not happy with outside Dylan. You learn more about outside Dylan just being fucking terrible.
I just wonder where this side story's gonna crescendo. I wonder what's gonna be the end
Not
of this.
good.
Yeah. But one thing we did learn in the scene of Gretchen and Dylan at home is that she's a paramedic.
How much are we betting here that she was the paramedic that attended to Mark's wife?
Oh, fuck right off with that.
$2.
I had not thought about that at all, Luke.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about the most awkward dinner party ever between Bert, Fields, and Irv. John.
We knew it was going to be fucking awkward because of how it was. I really wanted Fields to just start munching on a tomato at one stage. just full on Lord of the Rings. But he did not, unfortunately. Beautiful house. Gorgeous house. With lots of weird salt and pepper shakers at the top, which confused me. But Fields was pretty intense at times. Bert and Irv, it was nice to see them together, but still kind of awkward. The whole scene, the talk, how it starts off nice, and then obviously when Fields goes into the whole conversation of, did you two have unprotected sex at work? It's just super awkward, not fun to be around, but still you can kind of see where he's coming from with that being his husband and all these kinds of things. It's a horrible scene. And then the big kind of one where they're talking about how Bert ended up joining Lumen because of good old Jesus Christ himself. There's some weird stuff going on there because Fields has mentioned that he's been there. Is he just drunk? Is he not? Because they reiterated it twice that Fields said that he's been there for 20 years, but it's only been 12 years that they've done Lumen. But then also to add in my little 2 cents here in Bert's leaving video, he said thank you for the last 7 years. So what's going on here? Is Bert Goodman actually Bert Badman?
Probably not unlike a lot of people. When I first saw it was John Noble, I, to no one in my house, shouted Denethor. That's where I'm at socially these days. It's again, like, we're back to faith, right? Like, they framed Christopher Walken in so much flame. Like, you have like the whole of season 1 where it's just like, Bert's a charming old guy, and like, okay, Chris Walken, you're sweet. But then they make him into basically Satan.
Yeah.
In that scene, which is crazy. Like, they frame him in front of the flames a lot. Yeah. They style his hair a little bit out so it's a little like horn-like. I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just Christopher Walken. But like the way that he smiles, the way that he acts, the way that he covers, like, I don't know. I will save it for Theory Corner, but like something is going on with Bert in ways that I'm not necessarily, I'm not sure of yet. The line, an innie can go to heaven whilst the outie burns. It's like, well, yeah, just like an innie can go to hell while the outie stays ignorant. It's the first season 1. Good news about hell.
Chinese restaurant with Mark and Helena. John, I guess. Let's start with you.
I mean, it's outside. It's outie. It's just Helena, isn't it? Who, as we've discussed several times now, we don't fully know where she stands because it seems like she hates her dad and Lumen and everything she's been kind of given because her outside one is the more restricted one, and now she's kind of spent time being quote unquote free with Mark S, and she's maybe having feelings for him because, you know, they did the nasty and the pasty. There's 2 things for me in this. Is she Helena as a bastard going there with ill intention because perhaps like that weird integration scene, because we don't know the full timeline because Mark is now a unreliable narrator because of the whole in-between currently. We don't know what actually happened at the end of the scene of Mark's nosebleed. Perhaps that got elevated and then Helena knows about it. I
read something this week on Reddit about someone positing a theory that Helena is in love with Mark. I don't adhere to that. I think that the way I wrote it down here, Helena is an entitled mad god who likes pretending she's Meg Ryan. Like, she is a delusional, power sick asshole who has been given a chance to indulge freedom just a little bit, and she's just like writing it like she stole it, and it's gonna have consequences. I don't find Helena Egan to be, I don't think she's a good person. I don't trust Helena in the least. I trust Helly more than I think anyone on the show, but Helena, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah, it's very hard to tell who the real Helena is. Because in the boardroom, she could be hamming it up for the board, like we said before in the previous episode. But when she's looking at the video footage of her and Mark kissing on the CCTV, she seems a little more like, like not innocent, but a little more interested and not as stern. Yeah. And when she sees Mark in this restaurant, she's very fake. It comes across. So I don't even think we've seen the real Helena yet. I'm unsure. I don't trust her as far as I can throw her, though. That's not far. Okay, Matt, the ending scene with the flooding of the chip and that whole thing that happens afterwards. Let's hear it.
I thought it was. I was very excited and scared at the same time because it's like it seems like it's starting to work, and then it goes so fucking wrong. Does Ragabi only introduce herself through super fucked up, dire, bad situations? Because when she introduced herself to Mark, she killed a guy, and now that she's introduced herself to Devin, Mark's dying. So yeah, I thought it was fantastic, and I'm legitimately unsettled to see what happens next week.
Yeah, the surgery scene was horrific.
Yeah,
like they're all walking around with these blowholes in the back of their heads.
I couldn't do that, man. I'm too neurotic and like anxious. I'd just be like poking at it and just like, it's still there. It's just covered up my skin.
John, what are your thoughts on the ending scene?
Yeah, good. It's horrible. It's gross. It's a gross scene. Just seeing someone drill inside your head and open up a little hole on there. But then when the reintegration's happening and you see flashes again of like Helly, and you see a very short flash of Gemma, and it's the first time we see Gemma in like a different item of clothing, where she's wearing a purple jumper. And as all us nerds now know, that like the color purple is the mix of the blue and the red from the innie outie and stuff. So it's the first time we've kind of seen Gemma. Is that it's the final crossover of seeing those. So that's kind of cool. And then the whole him arguing with his sister, saying he's going down his own route, and clearly having a stroke with the smell and just collapsing. And
yeah, I thought he was dead. Honestly, when he hit the floor, I was like, oh, they've killed off the main character.
The work is mysterious and important.
Theory Corner. Mysterious Theory Corner.
All right, welcome to Theory Corner, where we break down the most ridiculous theories that each of us have. Matt, let's hear your theory for this week.
I have two. One is ridiculous and one is not ridiculous. I'll go with the not ridiculous one first. I think Bert is almost certainly confirmed to be working with Whole Mind. They name dropped the Whole Mind organization in Dinner with Bert and Fields really deliberately.
I missed that completely.
I think it's got to be Whole Mind that Bert's working with. My more ridiculous, maybe just more fun theory is that when Mark, after he and Helly have sex, and he gets his nosebleed, and Miss Wong is like, how'd you get your nose? Did you punch him? The whole thing seems very geared to take advantage of the fact that she's a child and she doesn't recognize that they have sex hair.
Right.
Like she does. She's just like, that's not a thing that she's aware of. But yeah, she's just oblivious to the fact that they have sex hair. And like, what were you doing?
Love it. Thanks, mate. John, theories for this week.
My only kind of theory, and it doesn't stand that strong, but I kind of also like it and want it to be true, but maybe not. Bert was a quote-unquote scoundrel. I think that he was perhaps the old enforcer for Lumen, like the previous Drummond.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
All right. My theory. You ready? I referenced this in a previous episode about Irv is going to lose his head. When he got fired, everyone was like, oh, that was what it was in reference to. But in this episode, when he's in Bert's house, he's sat at the table and there's a shot where he first comes in and the light is like refracting and his head is like separate from his body. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Also, the whole Attila the Hun thing. Mm-hmm. So Attila the Hun's son was killed by being decapitated.
There's some decapitation imagery.
My theory, my guess is that Drummond is going to be the one who eventually decapitates Irv. Sorry, it's going to happen.
Jesus.
Thank you for joining us today, Matt. How did you find it? Where can people find you, your work, everything about you, your social security number? Where can they find it all?
I am pretty Googleable, turns out, for an innie. My Audi apparently has written a number of horror novels at this point. The most recent one came out from Tor Nightfire last August. It's called A Mask of Flies. You can pick it up wherever you get your books. But this has been a fucking blast. Thank you guys so much for having me down on your part of the Severed Wing. This has been an absolute joy.
It's been a pleasure to have you, mate. Thank you so much.
We'll add all Matt's handles and links to books and everything in the show notes. Thank you again for listening. You can find us on all the socials. Luke adds it to the end because he's good, because I'm not good at this part. Love you all. Have a great day. You're the best. Be true to yourself. And until next time, praise gear.
Severance with the Boys is a production of Movie Time with the Boys. Written, performed, and edited by Luke Frost and John Davis. Original soundtrack and themes by Orhan Aydin, and original artwork is by Zach Williams. Connect with us on Instagram and Blue Sky, or email us at movietimewiththeboysmail@gmail.com.